The rain over Blackwood Heights was relentless, a cold, grey curtain that seemed to isolate the manor from the rest of the world. Inside, the air was thick, with the scent of expensive floor wax and something else, something metallic and sharp. Detective Elias Thorne pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders. He had seen hundreds of crime scenes, but this one was unnerving. The master bedroom of Julian Vane was a masterpiece of carnage. Blood was everywhere. It had sprayed across the silk curtains, soaked into the Persian rugs, and pooled in the grooves of the hardwood floor. Based on the sheer volume, no human being could have survived this. But there was one glaring problem. The room was sealed from the inside, and there was no body, no footprints, no drag marks. "Nothing," Sergeant Miller said, his voice echoing in the hollow room. "We've checked the chimneys, the floorboards, and the ceiling. It's like Julian Vane turned into liquid and evaporated." Elias walked to the center of the room. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in the cruelty of men. Julian Vane was a billionaire with more enemies than friends. He was a man who sold secrets for a living, a digital ghost who had built a fortress for a home. "Check the security logs again, Miller," Elias commanded. "We did, sir." The biometric locks were engaged at 11 p.m. No one entered or left. "This wing until the maid. Found the mess at 6 a.m. The thermal cameras show no heat. Signatures leaving the windows. It's a closed box." Elias approached the large mahogany desk. A glass of scotch sat there, half-finished. Beside it was a silver letter opener, clean and polished. He turned his attention to the blood. It was concentrated near the heavy wardrobe. He knelt down, squinting at the splatter pattern. "If you kill a man here," Elias muttered to himself, "you have to carry him out. If you carry him out, you leave a trail. If there's no trail, the body is still in this room." He spent the next 3 hours tapping on walls. He moved every piece of furniture. He even ripped up sections of the carpet. Nothing. The walls were solid stone. The floor was reinforced concrete. By midnight, the frustration was boiling over. He decided to interview the household. First was Elena Vane, Julian's wife. She sat in the drawing room, wrapped in a black shawl. She was 20 years younger than Julian, with eyes that looked like they had forgotten how to cry. "Did you hear anything, Mrs. Vane?" Elias asked, his voice low. "The rain," she replied softly. "It drowns out everything in this house. Julian and we lived separate lives in the same house. He stayed in his wing. I stayed in mine. He was paranoid, detective. He thought his business partners were coming for him. He slept with a gun under his pillow." "The gun is still there," Elias noted, "fully loaded. He didn't even get a chance to reach for it." "Tell me, did he have any hidden rooms? A panic room, perhaps?" Elena shook her head. "He talked about one, but he never built it. He said the best place to hide was in plain sight." Elias moved on to Arthur, the butler. The old man was a fixture of the house, having served the Vanes for decades. He was composed, but his hands shook as he poured tea. "Mr. Vane was a man of patterns, sir," Arthur explained. "Every night at 11 I brought him his scotch. I left it at the door. I heard him bolt the lock from the inside. That was the last time I heard his voice." "And what did he say?" "He said, 'The cycle is almost complete, Arthur. Tomorrow I'll be a new man.'" Elias froze. A new man. It sounded like a retirement plan or a threat. Returning to the crime scene, Elias felt he was missing something obvious. He looked at the blood again. He noticed a strange detail. Near the baseboard there was a tiny, almost invisible gap in the blood spray, a perfect, straight line where no blood had landed. It was as if something thin had been standing there during the murder and was later moved. He pushed the heavy wardrobe aside. Behind it was a ventilation grate. He unscrewed it, but it led to a narrow pipe that not even a child could fit through. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the room, and Elias saw a reflection in the vanity mirror. He walked over to it. The mirror was bolted to the wall. He touched the frame and felt a slight vibration, not from the wind, but a mechanical hum. He gripped the edges of the mirror and pulled. It didn't budge. He pushed. Nothing. Then he remembered the half-finished scotch on the desk. He walked over, picked up the glass, and noticed a small indentation on the mahogany surface where the glass usually sat. It was a pressure sensor. He placed the glass back into the groove. A faint click echoed behind him. The entire vanity mirror slid upward, revealing a dark, narrow staircase spiraling downward into the foundations of the house. "Miller, get the backup down here!" Elias shouted as he drew his service weapon. He descended into the darkness. The air grew colder, smelling of salt and electricity. At the bottom of the stairs, he entered a room that looked like a high-tech surgical suite. There were monitors, heart rate sensors, and a large glass tank in the center of the room. But what Elias saw next made his blood run cold. In the tank was a body, but it wasn't Julian Vane. It was a man Elias didn't recognize, his skin pale and lifeless. Beside the tank was a collection of glass jars. They were filled with blood, Julian Vane's blood. Elias realized the terrifying truth. Julian Vane hadn't been murdered. He was the murderer. The blood in the bedroom upstairs? It had been siphoned from Julian's own body over months and kept in cold storage. On the night of the murder, Julian had splashed his own stored blood across the room to create a scene so violent that death would be certain. But why? Elias searched the desk in the basement and found a passport with a different name and Julian's photo, but with a completely different facial structure, reconstructed by surgery. He also found a death certificate for the man in the tank, a homeless man with no family who happened to share Julian's height and build. Julian Vane had faked his own death to escape a multi-billion-dollar fraud investigation. He had killed a stranger, placed him in a chemical vat to dissolve the features, and used his own blood to frame a murder where no body would ever be found, because the victim was now a new man with a new face, already halfway to a country with no extradition. Elias heard a footstep behind him. He turned, but a heavy blow caught him across the temple. As he fell, he saw the silhouette of Arthur, the butler, holding a heavy wrench. "I told you, Detective," Arthur whispered as the world went black. He said he would be a new man tomorrow. When Elias woke up, the basement was empty. The tank was gone. The monitors were smashed. The secret door behind the mirror had been welded shut from the outside. The police eventually broke through the walls to find Elias, but the murder case was officially unsolvable. There was no body, no suspect, and the man who owned the blood was legally dead. Julian Vane had committed the perfect crime. He had murdered his old self and left the world chasing a ghost. Years later, Elias Thorne would sit in a small cafe in a remote corner of the Mediterranean. He saw a man sitting across the street, a man with a different face but the same way of holding a Scotch glass. The man looked at Elias, raised his glass in a silent toast, and disappeared into the crowd. The case was closed, but the echo of that empty room would haunt Elias forever.